But so Ted Rogers thought, hey, I got an idea. Why don't I make a whole bunch of radios and sell them to people so that they have a way to listen to us? So I thought it was a pretty cool. It actually then it led the way for people to have FM radios in their cars, and that FM radio now is just taken for granted. But then it was really hard to get people to buy into it, and he thought of a great way to do it, where he had to get the the machines out there so people could actually hear what they were doing. Times it did, especially starting out, because you don't really have the choice of times. But because I spent a lot of my time reporting, so you could be working 9 to 5 mostly. But that being said, there's things that happen outside of that 8 hours, so early mornings or late nights and that kind of stuff. So
It's a current affairs show, so it's an interview program. You are doing everything from politics to arts, science, religion, sort of social issues, whether it's what's just happened at City Hall, or what's going on in schools, what's occurring in the medical world. And as a result, you have to be sort of ready for everything. And then on top of that, you have this mix of music too. So it's not all talk. There's because you're also bringing people both new songs that they should be listening to, but also songs that they want to be hearing. So it's a drive home show. So you're kind of getting into the mind of what people need to know as they're heading home.
Yeah, I actually did a little bit. I was lucky enough to do a couple of, and it's funny because it's happening around the time of the year, Remembrance Day, but I did a couple of tours with Veterans Affairs where we went with vets to Italy in one case, and we kind of revisited some of the same places that they were years and years before in the Second World War and stuff. It was kind of cool that way. And then I went back for the rededication of the Vimy Memorial in France a few years back, which was really neat. They spent a number of years, 4 or 5 years, putting it all back together again and cleaning it up, and then they had a huge, giant ceremony with like the Queen, and it was a pretty amazing place to be.
Interesting. When I was hosting Ontario Today, which was a job I had before this, and when I was hosting the music program Bandwidth, it did allow for a little more travel because they were Ontario-wide. So in order to reflect that community, you were needing to head out. With a local show, of course, if you're staying connected to your community, the furthest I'm going to be traveling for work is probably Kingston.
Well, I actually am a graduate of this program. I had a job before I left, and a part-time job, and then I ended up getting full-time after I left school. Well, I'd recommend that you do a lot of things, because it's the industry is changing in that, like a lot of industries where you have to do more than just one thing. So it used to be, you could be just a music director and plan all the music, or you could be just a commercial writer. But nowadays you have to be able to do more than one thing. So you might have to be able to produce commercials and that kind of stuff, as well as voicing commercials, as well as doing on-air stuff. Or you might have to do news on the air, as well as other duties. So what I'd recommend is that you have more than one skill.
This is the most depressing thing, and I was told the same thing, but that there's often not a lot of jobs, but be ready to do work. So be ready to do everything. Like, you have to, if they say, hey, we think you might, we're looking for somebody to book this story. Yes, yes, I will do that. Yes, I can do that. Yes. And you have to take risks. The biggest bit of advice I would say is come with ideas.
Yeah.
I'm always amazed by people who walk through those doors and sit down and say, oh yeah, I want to work here. Yeah, what's a story you want to tell? I don't know. Like there's come with like your 10 hottest ideas. I love my job. This wasn't what I expected to be doing. I always, I had not thought of myself as ever being a radio host because I didn't like my voice. So I always thought I was a print guy, and I would be telling stories through words. And then, as it turns out, this is an amazing opportunity. Every day you get to come in, you're talking to a wide range. What do we have on the show today? I mean, a dance hall band in 1 second, and the political panel right before it. So it's a nice range of stuff that you always get to talk about, and people you get to talk to. So it's pretty great.
A form of audio storytelling. There's quite a few smaller players in the smaller markets. There's some really innovative ones too. That in radio, My FM is a good example of that, where they have 7 or 8 stations, and they're all in really tiny, small markets. But they found a business model, to be able to do, which is super local. So they're the local newspaper almost. So it used to get a community newspaper. Well, they're filling that by having people go to the town council meeting. Everything that's happening in their town, and they know to listen, to find out about it, they have to tune in. They're not tuning in to listen to the songs because you can get those anywhere. But they're tuning in for that local content.
Because it's such a huge time zone that we're talking about, you have, like with every new media, that there's people who fell in love suddenly with seeing the pictures that went with something, and you had people who hated seeing the pictures. So in kind of the same way as with online media, there are people who embrace it and want the newfangled thing, and then there are people who are terrified by it or find it's distracting, find it's irritating. I think there are definite, I mean, it's kind of a weird thing at CBC because you don't have the same, to the same extent. There's not the same push to, oh my gosh, Justin Bieber, we gotta get the scandal on Bieber or something. There's not quite that same push. That's not to say that if Justin Bieber said he was going to be interviewed, that we wouldn't be all over it saying, oh my gosh, we got to get him too.
I think it does probably a little bit, but on the most part, radio people are pretty creative, and it's pretty hard to kind of keep a lid on them.
For me, I mean, I'm a bit of a film nut, and when I was on Hosting Ontario Today, I had the chance to interview Norman Jewison, who is a director that I hugely respect, and I was absolutely terrified, and I went out and rented pretty much every film he'd ever made. I'd just finished reading his autobiography, but I wanted to make sure, so I was renting Moonstruck and Hurricane, just going one after another, just making sure that I knew them all. And then I got in there, and it actually all paid off. It was the ability to sit down with somebody, and when he brought something up, being able to know exactly what he was talking about. He responded. He wrote me this lovely note afterwards and sent it. I mean, he does this with everyone. I have no idea, but to me, it felt really special. But he was one of those. I love people with stories. Obviously, like people who have experienced things and who have passion about what they do. And so sometimes that'll come from somebody who's talking about what's going on at their mosque, or somebody who describes, what their family celebrations are like. Sometimes those amazing stories happen every day too. But that was definitely one where I had the exhale moment after he left the room. I think that was the only one where I really was kind of sweating, kind of stomach churning a little bit.
All right, accidents report in your capital region for your drive home. We've got one at Carling and Pinecrest, so if you're out in the west end, you're going to want to look out for that. Also, as well as Bank and Heron, so if you're coming in from the Riverside Way with the construction out there, you're going to want to avoid that area. Queensway looking good so far in both directions. Pretty heavy all the way out to the 174 from the split there and into Canada from Bayshore. If you spot anything or see anything, give me a call, 613-750-2535, and we'll let people know about that. Weather not looking good tonight. Rain's gonna switch to snow and a low of 2 degrees. Overnight, we're gonna hit -3 and more snow. Boo. Saturday, however, the sun's gonna poke out and gonna get up to a cool 3, but at least some sun. And currently in Canada's capital, it's wet, it's miserable, it's rainy, and it's 4.
I have a crazy crush on Rachel McAdam, and I was going to interview her it was on by phone, and even there I was like feeling the pressure at that point, and then I did the interview and managed to, there had been a thing on the internet that she'd been cast in the Fantastic Four film, and so I said, and congratulations, by the way, on being cast in the Fantastic Four, and there was this moment where she's like, I didn't get that role. I just was informed of that the other day. So the internet had been wrong, and it was, I thought, okay, she's never going to marry me now. That's fine.
Oh my gosh. So you didn't prep me on any of these questions. Oh my gosh.
This isn't my question, so.
For me? Yeah.
That was easy.
Yeah.